So first up is the Tyrant. So he's your generic sort of combat lord. Clocks in at 210 points with nothing. And for that you get Fear and Ogre Charge. So no special, well, no other special rules. Movement of 6, weapon skill of 6, which for a lord isn't amazing. Ballistic skill of 4, not shooting much though. Strength 5, toughness 5, 5 wounds, initiative 4, 5 attacks, and a leadership 9. So apart from the slightly above average weapon skill, everything is decent on his stat line. Initiative's not amazing, but you're not going to get killed easily, so you'll always get to strike back. Comes equipped basic with a hand weapon and light armor. So you get a 6+ armor save basic, which isn't great on your lord, which is going to be your general because it's got the highest leadership in the army. But you can give him heavy armor for 5 points, which I would always recommend doing, and an iron fist for another 5 points, which is usually a good bet unless you invest in some magic armor, because you can take 100 points worth of magic items. You can take an additional hand weapon, which gives you 6 strength 5 attacks, or you could take a great weapon, which gives you 5 strength 7 attacks, which might seem great, but you're always striking low. I don't know actually, I can't see what's wrong with that actually. Although, against most things, strength 5 and strength 7, the difference between those is minuscule for wounding most things. And if you go up against a monster, then yes, those great weapons are useful in that sense. But really, my advice for this would be, your Tyrant is going to be your general if you take a Tyrant. You don't have to take a Tyrant, because the Slaughtermaster is usually more useful as a lord choice. But if you do take a Tyrant, I would recommend building them to not take challenges quite so much, but dish out lots of hurt to infantry while taking very little damage back. Because realistically, you're going to want a battle standard bearer who's got to survive, because apart from your leadership 9 bubble, everything in your army has leadership 7, which isn't great. Excuse me. No, I'm not going to sneeze. So you need your battle standard bearer to survive, and your Tyrant provides the leadership 9 bubble. He's quite survivable already, but I would invest in some armour at the very least. Although running him vanilla is a pretty decent investment at 210 points, although I would splash out to, you know, a little bit. If you're going to run him vanilla, get him an additional hand weapon, some heavy armour or something, just so he can do a little bit more. Because 3 points for an extra strength 5 attacks, brilliant. So then you've got his hero counterpart, who I've kind of already touched on, the Bruiser, will cost you 105 points. So you can get 2 of these for the same price as 1 Tyrant. And they are movement 6, weapon skill 5, so 1 less weapon skill, 1 less ballistic skill, strength and toughness of 5 again, 4 wounds, so 1 less wound, initiative 3, 1 less initiative, 1 less attack, and 1 less leadership, so 4 attacks and leadership 8. So the leadership ball they bring as Lord as a general isn't very much, which is why you're better off investing in a Tyrant if you want a high leadership. They can be, they're the only hero that can be the battle standard bearer for 25 points, and I would recommend, unless you're playing very small games, even at 1,000 points to take one, because of leadership 7 issues across the army. And you won't be getting steadfast ever, because you're never going to outnumber has more ranks. So as soon as you start losing combat, you're going to start losing combat, and you're not going to have steadfast, so you need your battle standard. So bruisers are equipped in the same way, have the same rules, and can take exactly the same upgrades for almost exactly the same points, like 1 point less on everything, apart from the additional hand weapon, which is still 3 points. You can take 50 points worth of magic items, or if you take the banner, you can take a banner of limitless points. I might cover magic items as well as rulebook magic items at the end in a big sort of magic item grouping specific to Ogre Kingdoms, in which case I'll touch back on magic banners and things then. But I don't have them on me at the moment. So, the second Lord level character is the Slaughtermaster. So these guys are 250 points, and for that you get Fear, Ogre Charge, and Immune to Poison, which I said I'd have a look at. And it is... I'll get there. Poisoned attacks cannot wound them, they must always roll to wound. Okay, so it was what I thought it was, but it's worth checking. So, Fluffy will probably never do anything, but it's nice to know that all those skinks shooting the Slaughtermaster won't be able to auto-wound them. With a toughness of 5, that's quite useful. So, in terms of the stat line, movement of 6, weapon skill of 4, ballistic skill of 3, strength of 4. So, strength's not as high as your Tyrant or your Bruiser, but then again, you're a caster. Toughness of 5 wounds, so you're quite a tough wizard to take down. Initiative 3, 4 attacks, and leadership of 8. You get that for 250 points, and as all Lord level wizards, you are level 3 automatically. You can move from level 4 for 35 points, which, now that your Lord allowance, is it an allowance? Your Lord, yeah, your Lord allowance has been raised to 50% in games. I would strongly recommend doing, because level 4 is a lot better than level 3. More so than level 2 is to level 1. Because you get 5 spells and plus 4 to cast them. As opposed to, yeah, it's a decent upgrade for 35 points. You can take an additional hand weapon, if you felt the need, or an Iron Fist. Now, because Iron Fists are shields and technically armour, this technically allows your wizard to take armour. Magic armour, sorry. Now, it has been FAQ'd that this is allowed, but it was also recommended in the FAQ that you shouldn't do this because it's not nice. Your wizard's already tough enough to kill, just be happy with that, especially with half of the spells they've got as well. So in terms of spells that they can take the Law of the Great Maw, which I'll cover after I've done this section, so it'll be the next video. The Law of Heavens, the Law of Beasts, and the Law of Death. Personally, the 2 laws I would take, on a Slaughtermaster at least, are the Law of Beasts and the Law of the Great Maw. Purely because, as ogres, all you're wanting to do is get into combat, really. And anything that makes you get into combat more intact, or do more damage when you get into combat, is great. So, Law of Beasts signature spell, +1 strength, +1 toughness, on a unit of ogres gives you strength 5, toughness 5, bloke running around with 3 wounds each, which is great. However, if you field any number of butchers or slaughtermasters in your army, at least one of them has to take the Law of the Great Maw. It doesn't specify the highest level, so you could, if you wanted to have a level 4 beasts slaughtermaster, you could take a level 1 butcher doing the Law of the Great Maw, but at least one of them has to take it. While this might seem constraining, it's not bad at all, because the Law of the Great Maw is, in my opinion, one of the greatest laws there is. Especially for the army, it's definitely built around Ogre Kingdoms, because it sort of synergizes really well. So you can take 100 points of magic items, which I'll cover another point. Okay, so then you've got the Butcher, which is 100 points basic. Who has Fear, Ogre Charge, Immune to Poison. He's your level 1 version. Yeah, so same rules apply. You can take Great Maw, Heavens, Beasts, or Death. Hand weapon can take an additional hand weapon, an Iron Fist. Or for some reason, your Butcher can take a Great Weapon. I don't think Slaughtermasters are allowed to. No, but your Butcher can take a Great Weapon, boosting it up to Strength 6 if he wants to. Which, for 9 points, you might as well, because you've not normally, as an Ogre player, unless you stick him in a unit of Lead Belchers, got enough units to hide your wizards in that aren't going into combat. So, something that makes him do a bit more damage when he's there is decent. He's got movement of 6, as all units have, apart from Grecius. Weapon skill 3, ballistic skill 2, strength 4, toughness 5, 4 wounds, initiative 2, 3 attacks, and leadership 7. So he's got 1 more wound and 1 more toughness than a normal ogre. But in every other way, he is the same. So, if you are taking any heroes at all, don't just take butchers, because while they seem really good value, your leadership of 7 is what the problem is, because you take a bruiser, his leadership 8, and Slaughtermaster's leadership 8, so that at least gives you a bonus if your general's that, and your Tyrant's leadership 9, so he's got the best leadership as the Tyrant. And Slaughtermasters are just there to sort of toughen up units around them. Where have they gone? Where have they gone? Oh no, Slaughtermaster. Butchers, sorry. I got really confused. Yeah, so the Butchers are the level 1 wizard. Apologies if I did say Slaughtermasters the entire time. I just don't usually take a Butcher. So you can upgrade them to level 2 for 35 points, got 50 points with the magic items, which I'll cover later, as I've already said multiple times. They are tough. They will be hard to kill. Again, take magic armor on them if you want, but you're sort of dissuaded from this in the FAQ that says you can do it. Like, no, don't, please. So that's the sort of Lord and Hero choices done. So now it's just onto the heroes. So the first of your hero-only hero-only heroes makes less than no sense is the Hunter. So the Hunter has movement 6, weapon skill 5, ballistic skill 4, strength 5, toughness 5, 4 wounds, initiative 3, 4 attacks, initiative 9. So your Hunter is exactly the same as a bruiser with 1 higher ballistic skill and 1 higher leadership. That's 130 points basic, and while this seems great, he's got a couple of special rules that are upsetting. First of all, you've got the loner special rule, which stops him joining any units apart from saber tusks, and means he can never be the general, so you can't get cheap leadership 9. I don't know how this works if the only hero you take is a hunter, whether you have no general and therefore can't give away points, or what happens. Someone will let me know, maybe you have to take a general and therefore you can't just take a hunter, but it seems odd. So the equipment you get a hand weapon, you get light armor, and you get a great throwing spear, which is a 12-inch thrown weapon with +1 to your strength, so it's like a strength 6, 12-inch range weapon. You can choose some other upgrades, so you can take an additional hand weapon for 3 points, you can take an iron fist, you can take a great weapon, you can take a harpoon launcher, which is a great throwing spear, but with a 36-inch range, and I think it's got move off fire as well, which is upsetting, and for 10 points, sorry, and you can take the blood vulture, which is a strength 4, 36-inch range weapon that doesn't need line of sight, and that's 10 points as well. So, interesting upgrades. I think the harpoon launcher, seeing as you can't, it doesn't work like a bolt thrower. If it did, I would take it almost every time. It's just one single strength 6 hit. So, and because it's move or fire, you're not going to want to fire it much. The blood vulture is a nice idea, but if it did something like D6 strength 3 hits as the vulture sort of raked across the unit, it'd make it better. Because I think one strength 4 hit for 10 points on a unit within 36 inches just isn't worth it. Or maybe I've been playing too much 40k and the shooting's just better. So yeah, let me know if anyone thinks the blood vulture's worth it, because I'm never sure whether I'd take it or not. You can take 50 points worth of magic items, or for, well not all, and for 250 points you can mount him on a stone horn, which puts him on a giant beastie thing, with, let's go, a movement of 7, strength of 6, toughness of 6, 6 wounds, 5 attacks, so leadership of 5, and some nifty special rules. However, you can't mount him on the Thunder Tusk, which would be more useful, because it's exactly the same points, and it has a special rule called Smooth Ride, which would allow you to fire your harpoon launcher while also on the move. But we can all dream, can't we? So the hunter is in. Oh, and although he doesn't have this special rule, there is a special rule that saber tusks have called running with the pack, which makes hunters that have joined them movement 7, so they can keep up with the saber tusks. Which is an interesting special rule, but seeing as he can't join other units anyway, I'm not really sure whether he's just making movement 7 basic. But again, I don't know, how it works at Games Workshop HQ. So the hunter's a nice character, although the loner special rule kind of upsets it a bit for me, because all the other characters in Ogre Kingdoms are force multipliers, and the hunter isn't, and that kind of makes him, although 130 points is well spent on something with that kind of stat line, because he can't do anything with that leadership 9. He's a lot less useful than you think. So after the hunter, we've got the Firebelly, which is your other wizard hero. So the Firebelly is a level 1 wizard who always uses the Law of Fire. He's equipped with a hand weapon, and he has a 4+ ward save against flaming attacks, causes fear, has overcharge. He has a strength 4 flaming breath weapon, and all his attacks are flaming attacks. Which is great until you come up with something against ward saves to flaming attacks, in which case your Firebelly is useless. You can make it upgraded to a level 2 wizard for 35 points, and it costs, I don't know if I said it already, it's 120 points basic. He can't take an Iron Fist for whatever reason, presumably because it melt. So he can't have armour of any kind. He can take an additional hand weapon or a great weapon. So I don't know whether I'd take him or not for the breath weapon, because it's quite useful, because he's one of the wizards that in combat is, he's got the same stat line as a butcher, so he's not bad in combat, and he gets a breath weapon. Plus he's got flaming attacks and things to deal with regeneration and whatnot. So I don't know, it could be useful, but I just don't like the Law of Fire much as a law. I think War Machines and shooting does it better. If you really want Fireball, just take the Ruby Ring of Ruin. But I don't know, he's quite a cool looking model, and the fluff's pretty weird in that he has to eat lava to become a Firebelly, which kills most of the potential Firebellies. And because you can survive being eaten by lava, he obviously gets a 4+ ward save against fire based attacks, as opposed to everything else which gets a 2+, and it has a ward save against fire based attacks. So immunity to them would be cooler. But at 120 points you can't really complain. It just shows that the Butcher and the Bruiser are much more value at 105 and 100 points. Which, they're the ones you'll be taking anyway, unless you want to flaming attack or want to take a hunter for some reason. So sort of, all in all, Tyrants aren't good, but most armies require a Lord level wizard. So you'll be taking a Slaughtermaster, but with your doubling Lord's allowance you could take both in smaller games, although that's 500 points right there. You're usually going to want a Bruiser, which if you don't take as a battle standard bearer, which if you don't take a Tyrant means your highest leadership in your army is leadership 8. Which, with rerolls, is better than leadership 9, but both is better than that, obviously. And you might want to take a Butcher to fill out any points, because having an extra wizard's great. So that's kind of finishes up the Heroes and Lords section. Not overly sure what to make of the increased 50% allowance, because you can spend a lot more points on Lords now, which is great, because you never used to be able to fit with smaller games. But spending 500 points on 2 models, I'm not sure if it's worth it or not, especially when, as Ogres, you've got barely any models to start with, so any sort of volume of fire will take them down. In terms of laws, for Slaughtermasters, definitely Great Law will be my first choice, and then Beasts, then possibly Heavens. And Death, I don't really think's that good a law, although your Slaughtermasters and Butchers are better with death than most wizards because of the short range of the spells and the fact they don't mind too much if they get into combat. So that's not too big a problem. On a Butcher, Lore of Beasts is pretty decent because you're always guaranteed the Primaris and the Primaris. That was 40k creeping up with the signature spell, and the signature spell is great. I don't think I'd ever take Heavens on a Butcher because you know all the spells are a bit different to one another. Death on a Butcher I suppose could be decent for sort of sniping characters. And Greatmaw because it's pretty good. Although Greatmaw's signature spell, as you'll find out next episode, isn't much sort of to be desired.